I love my 2025 Honda Civic Hybrid, but the head unit on it is kind of trash. It's very small, it has no wireless CarPlay, there is no navigation or anything like that, which is where this handy thing comes in. Look at this absolute unit right here. Look how massive this thing is compared to this one. Look at the screen, look how itty bitty it is. I have tiny hands, it's about the size of my hand. Here's my hand on the other one. Holy moly. So I'm gonna be showing you guys how to install this in an 11th gen Civic. So the first thing we're gonna need to do is actually pop off the AC vents entirely. Not just get the clips out, but actually take out the whole unit, which involves the climate control right here. But we're gonna take them out using a plastic pry tool, and then we're gonna access some screws that are right under the head unit. There's a panel right next to the AC vents that you're gonna go ahead and pop off just to make things a little easier when it comes to actually pulling this out. So I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly pop that off. And just to show you, this is what that panel looks like. All I did was get right behind there and pull off. So what I'm gonna do is get my hand and put it back here behind the AC vents. I'm gonna get my pry tool and nudge it in between this little crease right here. And then I'm gonna push from behind at the same time. There we go. Try to work your way from the top first, because those are the hardest clips. There we go. So there's two screws behind the actual climate control. There's gonna be one at the top right here for your climate controls right here, and then one on the other side for your push to start button. I lied, there's mysteriously another plug right under here that I'm gonna go ahead and pull out. There we go. Put this carefully somewhere so that you don't damage anything. So from here, there's gonna be 4 screws that you're gonna undo. 2 right here where my fingers are, and then another 2 on the opposite side. They're all black. It's definitely sketchy trying not to lose a screw back there, so go ahead and make sure that whenever you loosen it, like 90%, that you actually grab it and undo the rest yourself so that you don't drop it way back somewhere back there. From here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your plastic pry tool and you're gonna pry up this piece right here. And then there's gonna be 2 screws that you're gonna get. One's right here, and then the same thing on the other side. Be careful, because these screws absolutely sucked getting out. Once you got those 2 screws out, from here you should just be able to press up against the head unit itself and pop it out. There we go. Boom, there we go, all done. Here, all that's left is to unplug any plugs that are all back here along the actual radio itself. So boom, you can see all the plugs back there that I undid, and then here's what the old unit looks like. So with all the original wires right there, we're gonna go ahead and grab our harness for the head unit. You can see that they're made to actually fit the OEM ones itself. So here, like for instance, these 2 would go together, and for instance, these 2 would go together. So all I'm gonna do is plug and play the simple ones that seem obvious, like they go together. So here's some of the harness and 3 plugs already wired up. And here's the actual CAN bus box that came with the head unit. And here's the CAN bus wire that decodes everything. So my USB cable. So now we need to connect everything on the head unit side of things. Here's all the connections on the actual head unit. You can see your coaxial, there's your radio antenna, I believe, and then all your actual connections are gonna go right here. There's 2 clips right here that come from the old head unit that we need to pop off. You'll see that they're right on the underside. We only need 2 of them, so go ahead and try your best to get them off. I recommend getting a finger under one side and then a flathead on the other so that you can pop it off easily. Okay, well, you definitely don't need a flathead. These are much easier than the ones that were on the 10th gen Civic, that's for sure. Boom, there we go. So here we are on the new unit, and all I'm gonna do is go ahead and put those clips back on. So here we are back in the car, and all that's left is to try and put everything back together.
I recorded that video 3 days ago, and you're probably wondering what happened. 2 things.
My phone died while I was recording, and everything worked on this head unit flawlessly besides the backup camera. Now, this is a huge issue with any aftermarket 11th gen Civics. They just don't seem to know how to get the US models of the backup camera working. You can look at any aftermarket install of an 11th gen Civic. I promise you they say their backup camera doesn't work. Now, luckily, if you don't have a 2025 and a 2024 to, below a pre-facelift Civic, there's a plug that the factory will send you after you wait another couple weeks in order to get your backup camera working. But on these 2025 Honda Civics, there is no harness to make the backup camera work. So just a warning to any 2025 Honda Civic owners looking to do this. Do not get this head unit if you're not going to spend 3 hours trying to run a backup camera wire through your hatch. Reassembling everything is pretty straightforward. It's all clips from there and the screws that we took out right under here. There's 2 clips on the bottom of the head unit that we already swapped over, and then those 4 screws that we undid. Just make sure all your wires are kind of hidden all into that little panel right there. It makes things very easy in order to access if you ever need to like hot swap a wire or anything for whatever reason. Let's say your RCAs are wrong or something like that. But other than that, you're just clipping everything back in place across the whole dash. And then from there, just make sure that panel on the very far where the dash meets the door, make sure that panel is clipped back in as well. I apologize for any glare, but here we are with the actual home screen itself. Here's your Google Maps. You can also change that to be YouTube if you wanted. For me, whenever I change it to YouTube, it just doesn't work. You have your date, your time, you have an MP4 player that nobody's gonna use. But here you have apps that you can choose to put at the bottom. Here's recently used apps, and then your actual app tray itself where you have all your different apps that you install. I installed YouTube, YouTube TV, the Chrome browser, all off the Play Store that's already built into the actual head unit itself. Right here on the side, you have your actual volume knob, so you can see it works great. I press it to mute, press again to unmute. You have your skip and reverse, home button, back button. They're not actual buttons, of course, they're capacitive, unfortunately, but they all glow at night, which is really cool looking. Scrolling down right here, you have different buttons, your Wi-Fi, eye comfort, which makes the screen a little yellow, data if you have a SIM card, airplane mode, off screen, which turns the screen off, of course. Press it to turn it back on. Scrolling down again, clean memory, which gets rid of any unwanted RAM that's just sitting there. Standby, which puts it into sleep mode, and then obviously your reboot button, and then of course your brightness slider. There's also a screenshot tool right here in the upper right corner, and a settings button that I also have put on the home screen right here, so let's go ahead and click it. So here we are in the actual settings menu. You have your Wi-Fi settings, your SIM card settings, and then your more, which is like hotspot and mobile tethering stuff. Device settings, display, see what that looks like. Boom, just basic Android setting display. Sound settings, keypad tone if you would for whatever reason ever want this on. It's so annoying. Listen to this. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Don't ever want that on. The loud setting just introduces distortion to your speakers. Noise reduction, I have no idea how that works. The subwoofer and equalizer settings would open up the actual Equalizer app that I can show you right now. Boom, Equalizer app. This is awesome. It's a full equalizer. As you can see, it has different sound portfolios that you're never going to use, but it's great. It has a field setting right here. You can change where you actually want the speakers to be like positioned to. Then you have your surround right here. You can change the alignment of different speakers to make it sound like the speakers are nice and centered wherever you would like. Here's my settings to make it sound like it's centered where I am in the driver's seat. Subwoofer settings right here. This introduces distortion, but here's your actual subwoofer settings. You can turn the amp on and off like we said earlier. And then you can change it almost like a high pass and low pass filter, and then a bass filter for your actual door speakers so that you don't damage your door speakers. Back to the settings, we'll go ahead and go over there. Boom, now we have general settings right here. These are just kind of more basic settings, mute audio when reversing. So this is different reversing settings right here. Backlight control, that controls whenever the actual screen knows whenever it's at nighttime. So you can have that set by time or by the sensor on the back of the screen. Default volume switch, pretty self-explanatory. Lantern settings is for the actual lights for these buttons right here. So you can see I have mine set on white, but you can also set it on these colors right here, customize it how you like. Steering wheel settings just simply don't work. Fan settings is for the fan of the head unit. So I have it on auto so that it doesn't always running, but also it doesn't overheat. Factory settings, the password's going to be 3368 across all these head units. You have a touch check where you press it and then you click these different dots to actually calibrate the screen. Original car agreement is a deeper menu for different settings of the car. So like you have your units right here, all the way at the bottom, miles, PSI, you can change that. CAN bus upgrade if you wanted to. Reversal volume, I think that's whenever you turn it on and then in reverse, the volume is actually set to say 10, for example. AC information, so if I turn that on and use the actual AC dial, you can see now you can see different AC information. I think you can interact with it. No. Oh, all right, so it's just like, hey, this is what your AC looks like. I'm gonna turn that off. I don't ever want that on. Driver door position, you can guess what that does. And then you have your different reversal line settings right here. Reverse parking lines, you know, if you want that on or off. Static makes them not move. Max reverse angle, if the angle isn't set correctly. And then going back into the factory menu for the rest of them, car model is actually how you set your canvas. So I have mine set like this so that I could actually have my steering wheel buttons work. None of the other ones worked, so this is what I had. Going back, you have a mic setting right here. Antenna, I guess that's your radio. Video format is for your reversing camera, so by default it's on TVI, but if you have an AHD camera, you turn that AHD, obviously. Boot screen logo, you can make it any one you want if you actually like put it in the right file location, as you see. And then there's just other various settings that are much deeper for the actual like function of the head unit, I guess. So like local reverse switch, if I turn that off, the car doesn't know whenever it's in reverse, or at least the head unit doesn't. MCU upgrade over here, home launcher selection, so you click that if you installed a custom home launcher and you can set it right there. And then different USB settings. Here's the other settings down here. Then you have your Android user settings. So I mean, obviously this is kind of self-explanatory. You have your different Google accounts or Google settings or security or location settings. This is just for like the Android side of things right here. And then same thing for the system settings. You can customize your date and time, as you can see. And then there's your accessibility, developer options if you need it. Password is going to be the same, 3368. Boom. Now we have different developer options. About device, so I mean you can see what your device looks like, I guess, if you need that. Android version 13, that's amazing. It has a resolution of almost 2K, which is just crazy, aka like 1440p, but this is right under that. You can see your CPU information, etc, etc. Going back, device info. This is like for this is for troubleshooting or like reaching out to support, I would guess. And yeah, that's what the settings look like in general. Back on the home screen, we have an app tray right here where you can see all types of apps that you haven't even seen yet. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. Here's your radio, which actually works. I'm not gonna click that and get copyrighted, but I'm telling you, it actually works, thankfully. Obviously, you have your actual settings right here, but there's also the vehicle settings that you can get into, where it's just gonna have different information about your car. You can see on the trip info, you can see like, for example, your average fuel consumption, your average blah, blah, blah. You can see I've driven 2,769 miles and averaged 39.7 miles so far. Trip B, same thing. And then your setup, you have even more settings that you can go through. Vehicle personalization. So there's just different like trip A settings and how that's set. You can customize things like that. Auto high beams, like it's just a pretty nice little menu right here. But for the most part, that's most of the apps that you would actually be using. You have your Play Store, obviously. You can install any Android app that you wish. I have Google Maps on here as well. YouTube TV, obviously, voice search, that's for Google Assistant, I guess. But yeah, this is the head unit that I've put into my car. I would 100% recommend it if it works with your backup camera, but it won't in these 2025 Honda Civic hybrids. So I had to install my own backup camera, which took me like 3.5 hours to run the cable from the back all the way to the front. I'll go ahead and show you right now what that looks like. I was a sucker for making it look as OEM as possible. You don't have to do it like me, but I kept everything intact. I still have my OEM camera stored in a bag somewhere. But I absolutely love this head unit and would recommend it for 500 bucks if you're willing to put in an aftermarket backup camera. I will say it did come with one, but the one that it came with was absolutely garbage, and I had to buy a $30 one off of Amazon. The screen's bigger. I have wireless CarPlay now. I have USB tethering, as you can see right there, which means I can watch YouTube while I'm hypothetically parked or hypothetically not. And overall, I love the head unit. It's plenty bright. The resolution is absolutely insane. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into this aftermarket head unit that I've put into my 11th gen Civic. There's not really a lot of videos at all on how to install it or what they look like or what they do or what you gain and things like that. For me, I had the tiny little screen that was that big and all it did was play radio and wired CarPlay, and the brightness was terrible on it. So this was a substantial upgrade for me. It was also the only way I could put in my aftermarket subwoofer that I was comfortable with while having a full access to an equalizer that I can fully customize. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this overview. If you're interested in more 2025 Honda Civic hybrid content, check out my channel or let me know in the comments. Like or subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. Have a good one.